So hello, cognitive dissonance. We're back for round two. Um, where do you want to start? I know you wanted to start on the shell argument. Do
Yeah.
you want to introduce ourselves again? Should we bother with that?
No, it should be fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So I guess what I was contemplating essentially is when I think your two values essentially are if something has a human shell, it has value, and then if it has a consciousness level, something akin to like a chimp or approaching a chimp, it gets value, and anything below that doesn't. Assuming obviously it's not a human, doesn't have a human shell / experience.
Just to clarify on those, it would be introspective self-awareness, and just being human. Now
Yeah.
I know part of the human value is the shell, but I wouldn't say it's limited to the shell.
Yeah. So just quickly, are you saying if a human consciousness was transferred somewhere else, even if it wasn't, obviously, if it wasn't in a human shell, you'd still value the human consciousness?
Yeah, so long as
Yeah,
you're
yeah, that's
telling
fine.
me it's human. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And then when you talk to Vegan Gains, I think he put out a hypothetical of what would be the problem with someone just torturing cats. And I think your answer was one, there'd be a problem in terms of you wouldn't want someone like that in society because it'd be problematic
Mm.
to have someone like that. And then the other issue is just you don't like, in sort of a virtue ethics type problem, in that you don't like somebody like that, and you wouldn't want somebody like that. Well, you'd find it immoral the way that somebody would act like that, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have said that, like, while animals are not in the same category as the other two values I have, I wouldn't say that they're completely valueless. So this has been like, I'm trying to update the language that I use to describe these sort of things. Where when I say, my values are human and my values are self-awareness, those are more like intrinsic. I need to value what your values are. Whereas in animals or in a category is like we decide what's okay to do with an animal. That doesn't mean all things you can do with an animal are good to do.
Okay. That's all right. I was just going to ask, so for you, the experience of an animal isn't particularly, like obviously a low level animal I'm talking about, isn't particularly concerning for you.
It's not as high on considerations. Now, I've had some pretty good hypotheticals thrown at me lately that show that, yeah, I suppose to a degree there is that experience that that I value. It's just not on the same level.
Okay, because this seems very different to when we last talked. I think you must have been talking to some people, and I think it seems like what you view, unless I'm remembering it completely wrong, it seems to be very much different to what it was when we first talked.
Yeah, I would say it slightly is. I mean, I do talk about this topic almost every day, so there's always
Yeah.
like better ways of learning and better ways of expressing.
Yeah, I mean, from what you're saying, it almost sounds like you now do have some value for animals, whereas earlier when we first talked, it almost sounded like something like a pig or a dog, the actual experience of that creature wasn't something that you genuinely held any value for.
Yeah, it's to a degree. I'm not sure the language that I should use to express it, but yes, I think there is a level of which I do value that experience. It doesn't so happen to cross into the area of like not being able to use for a purpose.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's something I was thinking about, but it seems like you've changed at least some of what you've been thinking. Not only do I think you've maybe updated your language, from the way I'm perceiving, you've had a change in values a little bit. At least that's the way I'm perceiving it.
I think it's really hard to distinguish those two things. Like, I'm a descriptive ethicist, so whenever you're trying to describe your moral system, I don't think you're changing or up. Well, maybe you are to a degree, but we're always trying to describe ourselves better and better. And that's why I like these games, these hypotheticals and things that we throw at each other, these reductios, to figure out where do we stand. And yeah, I would say to a degree, the way that I'm describing it will be a little bit different. If you still want, we can talk about the shell argument, because I still hold that. I still hold that as a value.
Yeah. I guess the hypothetical that I was thinking of was, if you had a, say, dog experiencing something, you would value that less than a human of a dog level experience, dog level consciousness experiencing that same, I guess, negative input.
Yeah, I would say that's fair to say.
Okay, and would there be some level of crossover point, or just any sort of level of negative experience for a human of that level of consciousness outweighs a dog's level of experience?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how you're phrasing that.
Okay. I mean, essentially, I guess the hypothetical I'd go is, say there was a dog on an island, and it essentially, let's say this island had a volcano, the volcano erupted, and this dog were to experience being, dying from lava, essentially, versus a human of a dog level consciousness getting a small sort of paper cut, or stepping on some sharp rocks or something like that. Which of these things do you think would be, for you, is a worse thing or holds more value?
A paper cut? A paper cut's pretty minor. Stepping on glass? I don't know. It is weighed more favorably for the human. I could tell you easily that if I was in one of those consequential states where I have to choose either the human or the dog, I just pick the human. But if I'm like measuring heavier pain versus smaller pain, then I would say that there's going to be a level. I wouldn't say, if I didn't rush into this lava field to save the dog, that I did anything morally wrong. Like, I don't feel like I'm obligated to do so.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, of these two things, which do you think holds more value to you? So which one of these would be, which of these do you view as less desirable to exist in the universe?
A paper cut versus a dog. I guess the dog burning would be worse.
Okay, go on.
There will certainly, like, if it was the finger being cut off of the human versus the dog burning, I would probably say I want to prevent the human from losing his finger. But if you're weighing a paper cut versus the lava, then I think the lava dog situation wins.
Yeah, because that seems a lot different to what the sort of idea that I got from when you talk to vegan gains, because your main concern seemed to be of the individual, like the actual human, who like how they were perceived and what kind of person this was, versus the actual experience of pain for these cats. So if you're saying the experience of these dogs being killed, or this dog being killed by lava, is more concerning for you than some minor issue with a human of a similar level of consciousness, that seems to be different already from when I talk to you and when you talk to Richard.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, because the reductio that I had, I guess, lined up was, if you, because I assumed that you were going to go down the route of human no matter what, because you value human shell. But say if you, obviously the reductio to that would be, if you had, say, 1 million dogs going through this experience versus one human getting I guess you could go with getting their finger cut off. Which one do you think is worse? And if you had an option, which one would you choose to stop?
A human finger cut off versus a bunch of dogs in the lava. I mean, only a vegan conversation would ever bring such a thing to light. I don't know, because I really wouldn't want a person's finger to be chopped off. That's very important. But you said it's I'd probably pick the dogs, probably because the human is of a dog level consciousness.
Okay, I mean, if you had, say, just an average level human versus like 1 million dogs slowly dying.
Human, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So you think, okay, so for you, so if it was a dog level consciousness human getting their finger cut off versus a million dogs slowly dying and having their flesh peeled off, their eyeballs popping out, and all this kind of stuff, versus one mentally handicapped person at the level of a dog getting their finger cut off.
Why are you vegans so gory? But yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a dog level consciousness person, I'd probably say the dogs over that.
Okay, but if it was brought up to a human that was of average level human consciousness, you would save that finger over millions of dogs being boiled alive.
That's a tough question.
Come on, man.
Well, no, I'm serious. It's somewhere between, like the gray zone for me.
Yeah, for me, I'd have to go the dogs. Like a finger's
I assume you'll go the dog.
Yeah, a million dogs being boiled alive.
I'm not saying it doesn't suck.
I'm not saying you're saying it doesn't suck, but obviously you're saying it's one average human's finger being cut off is somehow it's close enough to weigh up compared to a million dogs being going through probably the most gruesome type of death that one could imagine off the top of their heads. Really,
is that lava? Lava? You think that's the most gruesome death?
It'd be up there. I mean, obviously you could have a more drawn out one and all that, but if you've got a limited amount of time, lava's pretty up there.
I mean, it would be a totally different situation if you told me it was like a million people torturing a million dogs, because I don't think people should be torturing anything.
Yeah, I wanted to take away this, I guess, the sort of moral agent or the, that sort of thing, and just see it's just this experience of suffering. And obviously I'm not talking about a human cutting off another human's finger. It's just some random event, like somebody accidentally drops a saw onto their finger or some shit, just some unfortunate event. Yeah. But okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm all right with that. I certainly don't agree, and I don't think even the average person would agree.
I'm not sure what the average person would say, honestly. I think we're all very protective over other humans. I think it would weigh heavily on people's minds in a sort of gray area like it would mine. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to put it out there of just, a million. No, you don't even have to put up against for like vegans. You can just put up for the average person, say, million dogs in this situation versus one guy having his finger cut off. I think that's a pretty. Yeah, I think I mean, it's a lot better than what I was assuming, which is that you were just going to put humans above.
I mean, also too. You're using dog, right? Dog's a very strategic choice, because if you had said a million gerbils, to your own understanding, since they're both sentient, they would be both. But I think if you posed this to people as a million gerbils versus a person, I think you would get more towards what I would answer, which is just indicative that dogs hold a special relevance within our culture.
I wouldn't say that because gerbils, I would say, aren't as high as level consciousness maybe as dogs, and then obviously it wouldn't be something like ants or oysters or like bivalves. Obviously, like even then, I'm going to choose. Once it gets to that, I'm definitely going to choose the human. Dogs or pigs or any of this kind of higher level, respectably high enough.
How many ants would it take for you?
Oh, I don't know, but probably a lot. Definitely more than a million. I don't know how much ants, but it's going to be up there.
What about fish?
It depends on the fish. Fish, I'm finding more about. I know there's the general idea is that fish aren't that smart, but then there seems to be more and more evidence coming up that fish are a lot more complicated than we've originally given them credit for, or I guess the opposite, then we haven't given them any credit for. So I don't know. Some fish almost seem as smart as or smarter than land animals, and then other fish seem basically close to ants almost.
Fair enough.
It almost depends.
I would say though, like if we were doing these sort of number calculations, that a dog would generally be a lower number than it would take for cows, even though that they're the same level, roughly, of intelligence.
Yeah, if you're talking to the average person, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
See,
I would, yeah.
Because I've explored these kind of vegan arguments. I don't really consider dogs any more special than they're essentially the same.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And then I also understand what you're saying in terms of, but um, the dog threshold would be less because generally people tend to like dogs more. Yep,
Mhm.
that's fine. So I think you wanted to go over. I think the requirement for having a shell argument. I'm happy to listen to that, and then we can talk about. I think you said slaughterhouses, whether people should visit slaughterhouses. A lot of the other stuff, I think, because you seem to have changed your general sort of position a little bit or enough. I think it's probably a bit pointless. Some of the other points I was going to go down, but yeah, we can go down your shell
Sorry
is
about
required argument.
Yeah, well, sorry about that. Um, but would you want me to just describe the shell argument?
Oh yeah, no. I think you said when I was talking to you that there's problems with not having a shell argument. So
Ah,
yeah,
okay, yeah, sure. So you would hold that a human with the same level of, I hate the word sentience, I absolutely hate it, but I'm gonna say
you can say
sentience,
consciousness, so that's fine with me.
eh, sure, consciousness as a given animal would have the same moral value as that, right?
Yeah, all other things held constant.
All other things held constant. Okay. Here's some hypotheticals that I'm going to go through. Are you against all medical testing at the moment?
Yeah, for the most part, I don't. Yeah, I would prefer it didn't happen. Yeah.
So if we were in a situation where we had to cure a deadly disease and medical testing was necessary in order to prevent this, would you be okay with testing on animals to prevent, like the extinction of humanity?
Yeah, I mean that's one I've had to think about. It's not something that yeah, it depend on the level. There's probably going to be some flip over point where I would say, yeah, that's justified.
Sure, sure. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's just hit the justified point, whatever you
yeah,
feel
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
Let's say
yeah.
we're there. So we're going to do animal testing. Would it be okay to put a marginal case human in place of an animal?
If it's the same level of if everything else is held constant, and I guess
Yeah.
everything else is the same as just a shell, then I would say that it's not any worse. Yeah,
So like, not that I think that that means it's morally wrong, but we would agree that most people would not agree to that, right?
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay. Are you okay with blind dog?
with what? Sorry.
Blind aid dog, people with blindness.
You're talking about people who have like blind, like the assistance dogs.
Yeah.
That's probably one that I'm not definitely not as against. No, like
Would
yeah,
it be okay to put a marginal case human in its place?
yeah. I mean, if that's what we're gonna do with the dogs, then all things held constant. Yeah, sure.
Do we need to clothe the human?
If that's what's required to keep the human warm and all that, then
No,
yeah.
no, not if it's because it's held constant, right? So a dog doesn't need it. So this human wouldn't need it.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're talking about. I'm guessing you're talking about a naked person running around. Yeah,
Yeah, with
I
a
get what you mean.
collar on a leash,
Yeah,
leading a blind person around.
yeah.
That's okay?
If all things held constant, then yeah, I guess morally, I wouldn't say it's any worse. It obviously seemed weird to see a person running around with a collar on their head, around their neck, and running around naked. Yeah,
So you wouldn't think that's undignified for the human.
I mean, it's not any worse than I guess all things considered. It's something that I would say would seems definitely weirder. I wouldn't say it's any you like a dog not having clothes is not something that I guess we view as being undignified. I'm not even sure it's a real moral argument. Um,
Mhm.
it's one of those things that I'd say, yeah, it just seems different because of the way that we look. I get what you're saying. Let me just think about that for a second.
Sure.
It's something certainly that I say is it looks weird. Yeah, I don't know if I would say it's morally wrong. The main point of clothes, I guess, is I guess shelter and warmth and protection from the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, if that's not required, you're just saying it's weird, but it's not wrong to do it.
Yeah, I guess I get what you're saying with that. I'm just trying to see how I can sort of frame it the best because it's an interesting thing. It's a weird little thing.
I wrote down a few of these, so we got more to go.
All right, yeah. So we've got naked, blind human assistant running around versus naked dog running around. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say it's no morally worse than using a dog. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I disagree.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree with you that it's something that looks really weird.
No, we agree that it looks weird. I just also think it's wrong. I think it's very undignified to do to a human.
Yeah, that's fine.
We did talk about this on the YouTube video, but you said it would be fine if it was a P-zombie human to be able to carve it up and put it on display in like the storefront.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's any. So if you're any necessarily worse, so the version I use is say there was some person who started up a P-zombie company, a CEO, his own, and he was happy for people to eat it and to display it and all that. Then I'd have then I wouldn't say it's any worse than displaying the bodies of animals that have been. It's probably worse because the animals have had to suffer something to go through that. And to be put there. Whereas with the P-zombie human being, it's just something that's just been created in a lab. It's obviously something that looks worse when we look at it, but morally it'd be worse because we've actually done something to the animal leading up to the point that it's displayed on a
human. Is it just no difference of putting them up in the?
Yeah, I mean, I would say both of them look pretty grotesque, but I wouldn't say there's no intrinsic value difference.
I'm just curious, do you have like the same reaction if you saw a P-zombie fish hanging in the storefront or a P-zombie human like dangled from a rope as if he hung himself?
Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. Yeah, at this point in time, because let me put it this way: when I've seen that kind of situation, I know that someone that's a human that's gone through something. It's not just this display. It's someone that's gone through something. And same with the fish. I would say a human is worse for me currently because that humans of a higher consciousness, and they've gone through probably something worse than what the fish has gone through.
But if they're both P-zombies, they haven't gone through anything really. For me, I have the reaction to the human, and I admit that. Like, it just doesn't feel right for me to see a hanging corpse in a window. It doesn't matter if it's P-zombie.
Yeah.
But you're saying that's fine.
No, I wouldn't say it's fine. I would say I don't particularly like either of them. And you're saying, so I don't know if I particularly like either of them. I don't particularly like either of them,
See, the reason I would say that the P-zombie is wrong is because it devalues humanity. And I think that's very important that we keep the value of humanity up. So not hanging corpses of people would be one step to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the same for the animals as well. I'm not particularly interested in devaluing an animal. So for me, I wouldn't say...
okay, so you would say a shell of an animal. You would say a shell of an animal is even.
Yeah, no. If we're going down the devaluation of these creatures, if this is a step that's going to devalue either of these creatures, then I wouldn't want that thing done either way. But it's just I don't think we can say one is bad and the other one's just sort of okay. So I mean, you don't view. Sorry, just quickly, you don't view the hanging of these animals in storefronts as being morally bad.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So I disagree with you on that one. Yeah.
So I understand why. Okay. So what this illuminates to me is that you have a shell argument. It's just linked to the things that you already value, which is all animals. Whereas I have a shell argument, but it's linked to the thing that I value, which is humans.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, with your one, you're sort of saying it. You hold the value of animals so low that hanging them up in storefronts is essentially it's not something worth consideration. Whereas hanging a human up is something worth consideration.
Yeah. I mean, I know we disagree on that, but
I don't. Yeah, I think the current devaluation of animals is bad enough that I wouldn't want, I guess, the hanging of these animals and displayed the way that they currently are to, I guess, continue. And I wouldn't want that to start up for humans. So I'd say I'm consistent with that.
Would that change your opinion to the previous one I asked you about blind human dogs?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'd try to be consistent about that. I do, like, the blind dog thing, I get the whole idea of not... I don't like the idea of exploiting something, I guess. But I can see if there was some situation where both of the individuals benefit, and we're bringing something into existence that may not have existed, and it's going to have a generally good life. I'm like doing the best version of this, and then it's going to also add extra value to another individual's life. Then I wouldn't see a problem with it. Now, obviously, we don't culturally have a problem with animals having no clothes on, but it just seems a bit of a cultural difference type thing. So obviously, if you go to a different country, they would want you to cover up your shoulders, and whereas if you go to other countries, even if you can walk around with basically, there's women that walk around with their no tops on, and that's completely normal. So it's not really something that I find, we can talk about what we find a little bit, I wouldn't even say it's like this huge moral sort of thing. It's just something that we find, I guess, aesthetically strange. So obviously I find a human running around nude with a collar on aesthetically strange, but morally I wouldn't find it any worse. If you just said, here's this human who wouldn't have otherwise existed, and there's no better way to create them, and them existing creates well-being, and them being created in this situation creates well-being, plus they're adding well-being to this other individual's life. It's something that's hard to, I guess, get like a good like comparison, but all those things held constant, the whole naked human thing, it's just this thing that we find aesthetically weird. Obviously, again, yeah, like I find, like if you watch documentaries of people like some tribes and you see, women walking around with their boobs out and people with piercings in weird places, you find it aesthetically odd, but it's not something that's like truly bad. Yeah.
It just depends on how much you think culture is relevant to morality. I know some people take the view that it is not at all, but I take the opinion that it is. It is a part of morality because it's part of creating the world in which we want to live in, which is just generally what I think moral discussion is about. Now, I don't know how you feel about smashing art. Like, would you say that someone destroying the Mona Lisa has done wrong?
I mean, it's done wrong because they're ruining something, that other people can enjoy. But I don't.
Yeah, okay.
Like,
so because it's something other people can enjoy. But now, if other people found it weird to walk around a human naked, why don't you take that into consideration?
Sorry, let me just cover the Mona Lisa thing if this clears it up. So, if, say, like, going back to the dog thing, if a dog were to, experience death via being boiled alive by lava, I would feel bad for that dog regardless of anything else going on. If the Mona Lisa was burnt in a lava incident, but there was no humans to appreciate the Mona Lisa, then I don't, or any individuals for that matter, to appreciate the Mona Lisa, I don't really give a shit about the Mona Lisa. The
Mhm.
destruction of the Mona Lisa only really matters to me in that there's an extrinsic value, and that extrinsic value is tied to the conscious creatures that can experience some sort of goodness from that.
Well, I think that's all moral discussion. It would have to have people capable of valuing and devaluing things.
Yeah.
So,
and sorry,
but
what
the
were you saying?
question is, do you find it bad if the Mona Lisa died in lava?
I don't like if it's some situation where if all human beings were wiped off the face of the universe, or sorry,
Well,
all
except you.
creatures, I'd feel bad if I enjoyed the Mona Lisa. I'd find it bad because it's something that I'm losing. But it's not like if I had a dog and it got boiled in lava. Not only do I feel bad for the fact that I feel bad about it, like that I'm losing something that gives me enjoyment. I feel bad for the thing that is experiencing that thing as well.
Mm-hmm. But that's still from your perspective. Like you don't get to have its perspective to feel bad for it. But I do understand what you're talking about, empathizing with its experience.
I empathize, obviously, which is, I guess, an additional value. I empathize with its experience of having to go through that. I don't have any empathy for the Mona Lisa because there's nothing for that thing to experience.
Yeah, I understand. I do recognize that distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to my next hypothetical. Is that, let's say, are you okay with pets?
Yeah. In most situations, there's going to be a few like little ironing out, but yeah.
Sure. Okay. So
I think it sounds a bit like you're going to go down another naked dog rap, but yeah, go on.
it's not quite that situation. But if a dog got rabid and it bit its owner, okay, so now it's a violent dog. And they take it to the vet and they find out it's going to cost $10,000 to fix this. Now it's doable, but the family decides, okay, that's just too much money. That's going to basically screw us. Would you be okay with putting it down?
Yeah, I mean,
I know you know where it's going to go.
No, I don't necessarily know where it's going to go, but the way that I see with pets, I think people are too maybe quick to get pets and they don't necessarily take all of the possible considerations in. For me, yeah, if I adopted it, I would adopt this animal, wanting to give it the best life, and it's not just this thing that's going to give me an additionally good thing in my life. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it all depends on I'd hold constant with how you'd want to treat a similar human being. So, if it's something that's genuinely going to ruin your life, it's a case of you have to weigh up whether you're prepared to cough up the $10,000 and be put back financially, or whether you would, whether you're willing to kill off this dog essentially that you can't fix, to essentially save you and your family from going under, I guess.
So you're saying either decision is fine?
It's on them. Obviously, there's going to be several different factors. So, $10,000 for one group of people is literally going to be something that's going to force them into financial, failure for possibly generations. Whereas other people might be like, I won't get to go to a trip for this year. So if you're one of those people where it's like, I get to not go on a trip for this year, I think, yeah, absolutely, you should just bite the bullet and save the dog.
I mean, I'm definitely picking a number for somebody where that number matters. Not that it's some insignificant number.
Yeah, I think if it's something that's difficult but doable, then I definitely think you should save the dog.
Okay, but if it would actually bankrupt you,
if it's because the question then isn't just whether you're going to fix this dog. It's this dog is essentially going to die. Mm-hmm. Are you prepared to put your family into? Because then it becomes a bit like the trolley cart scenario. It's effectively a trolley cart scenario.
It wouldn't literally kill you though, because even if you go bankrupt, you might have to start over and things will financially suck, but it's not like you die from it.
Yeah. So I mean, depending on how bad it is, I would say probably I'd err towards you should be coughing up the money. Yeah.
Okay, you should be caught, no matter what the money is.
It's not like if it's literally going to destroy your life.
What's destroy your life? Because I would want to clarify that, because I'm not saying it's going to kill you, but is there a bad enough state that it's just permissible to not pay for the dog?
Yeah, I mean that's something maybe I'd have to think about. But like I've gone to third world countries where they have pet dogs and stuff, and somebody like that definitely couldn't afford a $10,000 bill, and that would mean that they might not be able to feed their kids. They might not be able to. I don't even know what kind of state it would put them. They'd probably.
Well, let's just say it would take someone from an average living to living in poverty for the rest of their life, but they'll still be alive.
Yeah, I mean that's something you'd have to weigh up. And again, I'm probably just going to need a few more details. So, like, how much years life?
How much what?
How many years are left in the dog's life? And yeah, I guess
a reasonable amount. A reasonable amount. Well, I mean, it's going to be held constant to the human, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it'd have to be the same. So for me, I just have to. It'd just be a name the trait type situation for me. So if you wouldn't do it for a human, then you should do it for a dog, or remain consistent.
So the additional question I was going to ask you is if you think it's not something someone has to do, but you can enact a law saying that the rest of society will chip in. Do you think the rest of society should chip in for the dog as well as the human?
Are you talking about some sort of like animal healthcare type situation? Is that
because currently, as it is, when we put dogs, like if they get a disease or something and we can't afford them, we're allowed to put them down, but we cannot do that for a human.
Yeah. So I guess obviously there's things like pet insurance, healthcare route, or something like that.
So you would want to change the laws so that you have to treat a dog the same way as you would treat a human if they're the same level of consciousness.
If you're taking it into your care and you're responsible for it, possibly, yeah, that's something that I would consider discussing. Yeah, whether we should enact some sort of law that people should treat, I guess, these animals the same that we would treat a similar human.
Okay. So, I got one more question for you.
Yep.
You're driving along, and on the side of the road, you see a baby, just, I guess, in a crib. And you get out of the car, you see two parents had killed themselves. They say, well, our baby was they leave a note saying, our baby is a marginal case. It'll never grow up to have the intelligence. We came out here to kill it, but we just couldn't do it. So we ended up taking our own lives. Right? I guess in a sort of thing of selfishness. You feel obligated to take that child into safety.
Yeah, and it'd probably be and probably the same and it'd be the same for the dog. Yeah.
Okay, so if you found a deer with dead parents, you would be obligated to take that deer and rescue it.
Assuming I could catch the deer, because I've found a
sure. Assuming you can catch it, but you're obligated to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've found a what was it? Possum. I found a possum, and I've taken it to a welfare that can take care of it. So yeah, that's not really a big issue for me.
But you would say that anyone who doesn't get that deer has done wrong.
Obviously, it's a bit difficult because a baby, you can just go, oh, okay, just this baby, and you just pick up the baby and take it, and there's a lot more systems prepared already for it. Something like a deer, that could potentially be something. It's going to be hard to catch. And yeah,
well,
assuming.
I mean, you don't have to catch it. It's just going to sit there. It's going to be all held constant. You just have to go and pick up the deer.
Yeah, I mean, if you can, so I guess that's just a positive rights thing. Yeah, I mean, if you can do it, then do it. Assuming that it's going to be all things held constant. Yeah, I would do it, and I think most people would want to do that.
So, but if somebody drove by, saw this deer, and then didn't pick it up, you'd be like, that guy did something wrong.
all things held constant, if you have the ability to just pick up this deer, take it to something where it's going to be taken care of, then yeah.
Okay.
It's not that hard. Just pick up the deer, take it to some welfare place that's going to look after it. Yeah, it's really not
I'm
that
not
hard.
saying it's hard, but
Yeah, that's fine.
it
Yeah, I
also
get what you're saying. Yeah.
it also conflicts a bit with the vegan message, which is generally just let nature do nature's thing, right?
No. I get there's people that would say that, but no, I don't fall under the, whatever. Yeah, I don't think the let nature do its nature thing is a good thing. I don't think, if we have if we had the ability to, stop carnivory and keep these animals healthy, then I would say that would be a better way.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know who's been. I'm sure there's people let nature be nature, but there's nowhere in the world that I think that's. When I see an animal being ripped apart on nature documentary or whatever, I don't think, that's just that. If there was a way to stop that and keep obviously the problem is that you have to keep the carnivores healthy. Then if there was a way to stop that, that'd be perfectly fine for me. Yeah.
So if, let's say, that deer, you saw a predator approaching it, like a bear, and it went to eat that deer, right? Would you feel as bad if the bear ate the deer as if it ate the baby?
I don't know if I'd feel bad either way. I don't know if I'd feel as bad for one or the other. Yeah, I'd feel bad for both.
Okay, equally.
I don't know. I'd just probably feel bad for both.
But equally bad is what I mean.
I'm
not saying you don't feel bad. I'm just wondering if it's equally bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably about the same. Yeah.
Huh. All right. So those are my consequences of not having any shell morality. I feel like a lot of those positions will go against everybody's intuitions.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna say you're wrong because of that, because I don't believe that. But
yeah.
Did you want to do don't name the trait?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So I've got. I think the thing that you put up was something along the lines of if there's just some difference, it makes it okay to do that thing.
No, not quite. My point for don't name the trait was that if you treat one thing differently and you treat another thing differently, then there has to be a trait that exists between them. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
So the whole point is naming it is irrelevant to whether or not it exists.
Right. Are you saying just that there is just some difference without identifying what that difference is makes it okay?
No, I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm just saying that there had to be one. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do it.
So so you're just saying it's okay to treat A different from B as long as there's some difference. Is that it? You might just have to say this a couple of times. Yeah. Sorry. Go.
It's not that I would agree with reasons for doing it. I'm just saying that there has to be one by necessity for you have been able to do it. Because, well, I mean, this just more speaks to the old way the old name the trait was written. It said you have to name a trait, otherwise you are inconsistent. That was the old wording of the name trait. I don't think this applies to the new one, but the point was that the old one required you to name something, otherwise you were inconsistent. I'm just saying that you're not inconsistent if you don't name something. By definition, you are consistent. You just don't know what you're consistent to. Now, that's not me advocating that people shouldn't think about it. I think thinking about it is better than not. But I would also agree that most people are just moral intuitionists. If you ask somebody their moral system in the middle of the street, they don't have a clue. But it doesn't make them stab each other. People have these differences in their mind. They have these heuristics, whether or not they're able to describe them or not.
Yeah, that's fine, but I guess that's just a case of trying to explore what it is that makes something devalued compared to another thing.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not of the opinion that not exploring is the better option. I'm just the only thing I wanted to illuminate with that argument is that if you don't explore it, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to integrate yourself with society. Obviously, this is how people already go about their lives.
No, yeah, yeah. The fact that you haven't explored it doesn't necessarily mean that. I think the point of it is essentially if you devalue something to the point that it's, I guess, okay to kill it. Um, I think the average person would want a really good explanation, or at least some sort of a decent explanation. That's obviously the trade of it.
I think people are okay with the intuitions. And like, I wouldn't expect anybody who was just a vegan intuitionist who just kills plants and then doesn't think about the reason why. I'd just be like, that's like, I don't even care if you can't come up with, your perfect moral system.
Yeah, I'm not really sure where this is going to. I'm not really sure there's much more on this. Like it just seems for me if you like something like just killing a human being for a burger seems morally wrong. And if we were to do that to something else, you just want a good reason. I guess is obviously the point of name the trait. You understand that,
Yeah.
And then I think from there you just sort of explore with the person what it is that makes it okay or not okay. I think some people are probably going to struggle more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But really, once you start exploring it, it might become a case of us understanding that we're not really treating these creatures, these non-human creatures, I guess, fairly, and we're not treating them the way I perceive it, the way that we would want to be treated if we were in their situation.
Yeah, that's something I can speak on. A lot of people say that. I wouldn't want to be treated this way if I was in that situation. Personally, if I ever got transformed into a cow, I would be like, I don't want to be tortured, but if you want to kill me for a burger, fine. Like that life for me does not hold value in the way that I hold value in life right now. If all I do is eat and shit and walk around, then that's not really why I value my life right now. It's not for my ability to do those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's also a little extra part where we have to sort of say, well, does this individual also hold value? Because the example I use is, if Kim Kardashian was offered your life, she might say it's okay to kill me, to kill that version of me, because she's going to say, well, I'm not going to be able to jet around and live in mansions and blow heaps of money. I'm just going to be this fucking average person living in their silly little apartment. But obviously you value your life and I value my life, and every average person values their life. So in the same way, if I got my life downgraded to that level, I can see that cows value their life. They enjoy it, and they, we say, oh, well, they don't operate at our level, but they value it enough to enjoy it and to want to avoid being harmed. So it's not just me saying if I was just lowered to that level. I'd also understand even if I was lowered to that level, I'd probably still find enough enjoyment to value my life and want it to continue going on.
I would argue that a cow doesn't want to continue living. I would say that they avoid all danger. Yes, that's true. I would say they avoid all pain. But I don't really think they have a conception of the future. They're not sitting there like, what do I want to do when I get older? What is the life I want to live? I really don't think cows conceptualize in that sort of manner.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like long term, at what age does my super max out and when can I retire type thing. I'm talking about whatever decreased amount, they obviously have some value. Like there's this actually a really good video I can put up where there's a footage of a cow. There's actually no, I guess, gruesomeness to it. It's just this cow that's being led up a tunnel or a walkway, and it can see you can tell by the way it's reacting that it knows what's coming up, and it tries to turn around, but the valley or the way that the walkway is set up it's too narrow to allow it to turn around,
right?
And it essentially gets prodded until it's forced up and killed off. So I think they do have some conception where they can understand that something bad is going to happen if
Sure,
they were
yeah.
to go to that area.
Yeah, I will agree with you. It's not like I'm denying that. I mean, even just running away from a wild animal that's chasing them is an idea that they're about to be ripped apart,
Yeah.
right? So I wouldn't say it's any different than that. But when I'm talking about future planning, like I don't think the cow even thinks about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, but I still don't think that devalues them enough to just kill them off for burgers. And obviously,
Yeah.
you do, and obviously that's where the native trait comes in, where I wouldn't allow that for a human, and I wouldn't allow that for a cow.
Mm. I mean, that's just the difference between us, I guess.
Yep. Jimmy, and what was there was one other thing. I think you were wondering about opening up slaughterhouses or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was a question I put in my announcements. I usually just do kind of like daily questions for the server. That was yesterday's. Is should slaughterhouses be open to the public? Now this one I got inspired by I was watching a Joey Carbstrong video, and him and his crew went up to a slaughterhouse gates, and they're like, "Hey, can we have a tour?" And then he was saying, "Oh, isn't that weird that they don't let us in? That they're just hiding something?" And I'm like, "No, that's not weird. Walking up into an industrial complex and asking to come in is very weird. Why would they let you in?"
Yeah, I mean, it sort of goes. I understand what you're saying with that, but are you also Jonathan Safran Foer?
No.
Okay. He wrote a book called Eating Animals, and he goes into detail how he wrote to essentially dozens of slaughterhouses and places that I guess what would you call them? Like the factory farms and stuff like that. And he wrote to dozens of them repeatedly asking for a tour. And he essentially pointed out how either they wouldn't reply or they'd always come up with some excuse. We're going through some change right now, so we can't have tourists, or now it's not the best time, or something like that. But across the board, none of them would allow that. Now, if he were to go out and say to an apple farm, obviously he's making a clear distinction where he's saying, well, if I were to go out to an apple farm and say, hey, do you mind if I come down with my film crew or whatever and just get a tour? There's apple farms, lettuce farms, all these places. They're going to be like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can talk about the differences there. One, an apple farm isn't inherently dangerous because there's no, buzz saws that cut things open and other stuff like that. Two, you can't spook the apples. So it's not like you can disrupt the plans of an apple farm by being near an apple tree. It behaves the same way. And three, there's not activists who will attack the apple trees or try and set them free.
Yeah, I mean, so Jonathan Safran Foer is actually a journalist, so he's a well-known journalist. He actually wrote a New York Times bestseller, completely irrelevant to. It got made into a movie, completely irrelevant to veganism or vegetarianism or any sort of animal rights. So he's a well-known. This isn't some guy. He's not Joey Carbstrong or anything. He's just this journalist who decided to start exploring the how animals are essentially treated. So it doesn't really come through because a lot of the problems that you would expect they might throw up with animal farms, you'd get with apple farms. Really, it's about the fact that they want to keep it, hidden. And this because of things along the lines of ag-gag laws, along with the fact that they never allow people into the slaughterhouses.
That could be the case that, a lot of animal agriculture places fall short of, the laws that we've written for them, and they're trying to hide that fact. And that could entirely be the case. And it's really hard to prove either way unless we can get in there. I think one of the people in my server suggested whether or not we could have public cameras in there. And I said, yeah, that would be that would just be a good thing, I think. Is if we could just on camera, like streaming from the internet, be able to check them out and be like, yeah, this is going according to the way the standards that we want them to be is.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of different views on that. I think it would force them to at least go down a more regulated route, which I still don't think is good, but it might be better. Like there's footage from I'll see if I can bring it up. There's a footage from a place just in Australia that was released only last year. Now this is a sheep slaughterhouse.
Where are you putting this?
Just in the general or chill conversation. Sure, is it general con? Yeah, chill conversation. Is that all right? Or
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Just because if I put this on YouTube, I'm gonna have to put a link to it. Otherwise, nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, so it's called leaked.com.au, and it's just for a 4-minute or so footage of how these animals are treated, and and this is what happens. Like these kinds of things, they're not hard to find. The difficulty, and if you talk to any of these activists, the difficulty is getting in and actually trying to get the footage. The difficulty isn't in trying to find a massive footage. They've got a lot of footage. A lot of the times, the footage is more than they can put into one movie or into one video. They've got more than they need. That is the reality of these places. Is they try to avoid as much transparency as possible, and they try to put in as many hurdles along the way as possible. Obviously, there's no need to. There's no need. Like
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, you're aware of what the ag gag law.
Sorry.
You're aware of what the ag gag laws are?
In my country, but not. Where are you specifically referring to?
In America. America's fine. Yeah.
Okay, I'm in Canada.
Yeah. Do you understand what happens with the ag gag laws in America?
No.
Okay. So essentially, the way they're set up is, if somebody gets into a slaughterhouse, just say it's an undercover activist, and they get a job, they don't do anything that's illegal or wrong, or is going to actually put the way that the slaughterhouse works at risk, and slaughterhouses or factory farms. And if they film what's going on, and if they film abuse of these animals in this situation, what happens is, if they get this footage and release the footage, the people that have filmed the footage are automatically criminals. They're automatically up for criminal charge.
Because they trespassed?
Just because you're not allowed to go into and film this footage. Even if you get a job and you put a camera on yourself undercover,
aren't they criminals if they just get onto the premise and run around and don't film? Wouldn't they still be criminals for trespassing?
No. These people can go and get jobs there, and if they get his undercover camera on, and they film this, they're immediately criminals for filming this stuff. And what often happens in the way the ag gag laws work is that the people that have filmed this stuff are more likely to face criminal charges and be jailed and face worse consequences than the people that were, torturing these animals.
Yeah. No, nobody's going to argue that. That's a good thing.
What I'm saying is that that thing exists, and that's the way these slaughterhouses operate. They don't operate with any intention of transparency. Everything about the way they operate, from the fact that they won't allow people to tour their facilities, to the fact that they actually lobby politicians and they lobby the government to create these laws, because this is in law, that they've allowed this to happen. The way that these organizations work is directly against transparency. So that's what I guess Joey was getting at.
So this is one of the weird things I find, though. Have you ever seen one of those Temple Grandin videos?
Yeah, I know who Temple Grandin is. I've seen probably some of it.
Yeah, so they do like tours of a slaughterhouse, and she's trying to show people here's the correct way to do it, right? And one of the things I find surprising is that whenever you see these films of like Dominion or this leak that you're showing, they always show these like situations where they're throwing around the animals and they're struggling to kill them, this and that. And I'm always like, how would that ever be economically efficient? To have to fight every single animal that came through. Now, if you watch it in a Temple Grandin, they all just go single file, get one shot to the head and they're dead, and then they get hung up and then they do the butchering. That seems more economic to me than having to fight every single animal. It would just be more dangerous for the worker. It's more labor intensive. I wouldn't even understand what the point of it is, because it's not like you're getting away with a more economic model. You're making it worse for yourself by fighting these animals.
Yeah, it depends. I think the actual so Joey did this video where he went up to this place and said, "Oh, can I get a tour?" And then he went to another one, which is, I guess, a small sort of town, no, not small, like a small family type slaughterhouse.
Yeah, that was the latest video. I was watching that.
Yeah, so what happens with them is that they've said, we don't do a per head cost. We just do it however long it takes for the animal to come out is how long it takes. So if it takes 10 minutes for the animal to come out, that's how long it takes. Most slaughterhouses don't do that. It's actually more economical to just push these things through as quickly as possible. And they do.
Yeah, no, that's not what I'm disagreeing with. But it's like, if it takes you 30 seconds to a minute to fight with an animal to kill it, that would be way less efficient than just putting it through a line and shooting it once in the head and then continuing on. Like that's obviously the quicker option. It's also the less gruesome option.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's the way that. Let me put it this way. The way that the Temple Grandin ones work is probably it'd probably be certain amounts of footage, and there's a lot of people who try to follow that sort of method, but not every animal is going to behave that way. And then once you get to different facilities, there's also an issue of being economical in terms of buying all of these additional materials. And sometimes it's just a lot quicker and easier and cheaper generally to just push these animals through. So you might see these people struggling with the animal for about 20 seconds and punching it in the head a couple of times and then stabbing it. And then you'll see them doing it again. But they might be only spending 20, 30 seconds with these animals generally.
Well, I would challenge you. I would challenge you to watch a Temple Grandin video, because it's not only humane, but I would also say it's just quicker.
Okay. If you're going to say it's humane, obviously you would have to accept that for a human, or, go down the name the trait route. Because I wouldn't accept that. There's no way in the world that I like that and think that there's...
You can humanely kill humans. We do that on death row.
For burgers?
Not for burgers, but it's just a humane way of killing. It's the least... If you decided to chop somebody on death row from the feet up an inch at a time, I would say that's not humane. But if you put poison in them and they die instantly, that's a humane killing. That's the whole point of what the word humane killing is supposed to mean.
Would you accept them getting a bolt gun in their head and then hung upside down and have a knife drawn across their neck?
Well, I mean, there's no point of doing that for a person on death row. But if you want to bolt gun a person in the head on death row, yeah, that's fine, because it kills them instantly. I would say that's a humane killing of someone on death row.
Okay, that's fine. But then obviously if we go to something like a burger or being, you wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's fine. I still, the whole Temple Grandin thing, it just seems to be the kind of thing that is set up to make people feel good about what they're doing. Where they, like, the way the machines work is they essentially hug the animal leg and they say, well, it makes the animal feel nice. And it's just...
I get that. I get that. Yeah. It, frame... Well, look, listen, I think Dominion and Earthlings are, they have their background music of, they start grayscaling everything, so it's kind of black and white, and they play sad music. And then you get, like, a Temple Grandin music, and everything's all upbeat, and everybody's happy. And both of them are kind of, showing one side of it. It's a biased side of it. But what's interesting is, like, the methodology. like because you can't really hide that on camera. If you're showing me how they kill them, when I look at it in a Temple Grandin video, I'm like, this is not only, more humane, not just that, but it also seems more economically efficient. So I couldn't understand why you would ever deviate from that model.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the possibility of, like, you know how you said earlier that somebody who tortures cats would be, virtual in terms of virtue ethics, just a bad person.
Yeah.
There's also the argument of what kind of effect this has on the psyche of someone, even if they're doing it, I guess, nicely. If they're every day their job, 40 hours a week, 5 days a week or whatever it is, if their job is to just stand over something, bolt gun in the head, stab it in the neck, and just bleed it to death. Even the nicest version of that, what kind of effect is that going to be having?
If the nicest version of that did in fact cause trauma to people, there would be a very good argument for me to not have these kind of factories. I would agree with you that I wouldn't want these factories if people can't handle that.
Are you not aware of what that kind of effect it has on people?
I know a lot of people have those kind of PSD things, but I don't know what kind of factory they're in. Like if you're showing me these kind of like Dominion footage, shit like that, then no surprise to me that people will get PTSD from shit like that. If you show me that someone in a Temple Grandin sort of scenario is also getting PTSD, I don't know if that's the case. So that's something I would need to learn for me to be able to give an answer to that.
Yeah,
I do know people on small farms who do slaughtering. I've worked on a farm where I've gutted chickens, and are there, doing the cone style killing where you put their heads through the cone, you cut their heads off, and he's been doing this for 40 years. He's completely fine.
Yeah. I mean, with the Temple Grandin footage, I'd say that's probably the nicest version of that, and it's probably the most sanitized version of that. And even then, I would argue, I think there was actually, I'll see if I can find the study a bit later, but there was, I think, some FBI psychologists that did a study into what effect it has, opening up a slaughterhouse has on an area. And they find, even controlling for socioeconomic factors, that the thing that you will find is that the occurrence of violent crime goes up in the area, which isn't particularly surprising, because what I've been taught is seeing horrific footage is the effect of trauma, of seeing trauma, is cumulative. So you can have PTSD from a couple of different sources. So if you get a couple of serious events where they get a couple of really big ones in short term, then that can cause PTSD. But you can also just get PTSD from a progressive exposure to this stuff over your lifetime. So even if you saw 15 bad things over 15 years, that does accumulate and it does result in PTSD. And I do agree that from what I've seen and from what I've heard, that partaking and or witnessing this kind of stuff progressively over years will result in a higher occurrence of PTSD and mental health issues.
I guess I would have to see the studies on that, because I don't want to comment and say something that I don't know. I mean, everything I know is anecdotal, because I know a lot of more smaller farm settings, and they do slaughter on site, but it's also not a daily thing, right? It's not like 8 hours of shooting a cow in the head. It's more, like, oh, the chickens are ready today, which is like a monthly occurrence or something like that. And then, I mean, they're vegetable farmers otherwise, other than the chickens. So, and they've been doing it for many, many years, and they seem completely fine.
Yeah.
So there could be certain levels of this, and I don't want to speak beyond my knowledge on it.
Yeah.
Just saying, I don't think that all animal killing is going to lead to trauma.
Yeah, I mean, that is a bit of an anecdotal, but then it also, I guess, the more exposure of this thing that you have, the more it seems to have the effect of increasing PTSD and of increasing violent crime in areas. So yeah, I mean, I can get back to you on that.
Studies my way.
Fine. Yeah, that's fine.
And check it out. I don't. Do we have anything left? Because I think that's all of our topics.
I mean, I was thinking of doing for a pro racism based on a sort of shell argument.
You want to do pro racism?
Yeah.
Sure, I can talk on racism because I know a
No,
lot
no,
of people feel
Yeah, I
that
was-
it's the same thing, right? It's just a shell,
yeah.
right? But here's the difference for me for animals and like other races is that in general racism, let's take either slavery. We'll talk about the Jewish Holocaust. Um, in general, those races are looked down as if they're evil, as if they're bad, right? They're bad because they're black or they're bad because they're Jewish. And that was like the mentality of people. This is, I don't think that's the same what people's approach to animals. Nobody's saying you're bad because you're a pig and you're bad because you're a cow. It's more of you just don't have something of value to us. And I think this is one of the distinctions between racism and the animal, the way that we approach animals. Because what tends to happen in these racist scenarios is that people end up learning that these races that they consider bad actually have qualities that they value, right? You get somebody like MLK coming up and doing a speech, and you start saying, wow, these people are really smart, and the way that I was looking at them was completely incorrect. Whereas and I don't think a cow is going to surprise us in the way that it exists.
Yeah, I mean, I would still say so. For me, the basis of racism is just you are devaluing this individual based on the race. Not so much that you say that this individual or this group is bad, but you're just saying all things held constant. If this individual is of a race different to mine, then they immediately have less value.
I don't think that's all it was. I think people just showed up in like these African cultures and were like, wow, they're very culturally behind. They must be less intelligent. And I guess we might as well just pick them up because we're the smart ones and do what we want. I think this is like the sort of mentality that persisted. And then people learned that like, oh, well, all these differences weren't genetic; they were just cultural. And now that they're within our culture, we can see the value for what it is, and it just goes away over time. I mean, we've been doing animal agriculture thousands of years, and I don't think people have with all that exposure have looked at animals as though they were equal.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just get back to sort of the principal point of what I was saying. If somebody were to say that I value this race or this individual less, even all things held constant, just because of they're of a different racial background, would you say that that is racist?
Yeah, that's what racism would be.
Yeah, so I think that's what speciesism falls down to. It's just a devaluing. Racism doesn't necessarily mean that you value them as bad. It just means all things held constant, their race is something that doesn't give them as much value or devalues them to some extent. That's essentially what racism is.
Yeah, but it always gets conquered because the things that we value in life.
No, I just mean, like, for me, would you agree with that sort of definition?
Yeah. It's the same thing.
So, that's just what I'm getting to with the heart of your shell argument. Is you're saying all things held constant, this creature, which is of a different species to me, is of less value because of its species.
It's not of less value because of its species. It's just not included because it's not of the values that I hold.
Yeah, so it doesn't get the value because it doesn't have the species requirement.
Right? So this is the thing. I think people intuitively value a certain level of intelligence, and I think they also intuitively value their own species. In general.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do like a pro racism, I guess.
My point is that racism goes away because one of those things that we value, people just don't realize that other races have it. They tend to think of them otherwise or as lesser. And then what happens is they get proven wrong. and then they end up valuing that other race.
Yeah,
All
that
racism
seems.
goes away. Now, if animals were the same case, there's just no cross-species value that people generally value. I mean, for vegans, there is. They value this, concept of sentience, and that goes cross-species. But I'm saying for the average individual, there's none of that cross-species value that would end up, covering animals in a way that it always defeats racism.
Yeah, I mean that just sounds more like a descriptive versus a descriptive thing. And I'm happy to just play devil's advocate and be a pro-racist based on a shell argument, if you would like.
You
If
could, but then
that,
you would have to say that you don't value, intelligence of any sort.
no, 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 no. I'm saying I'm happy to of your argument and just you tell me whether you think I'm racist or not.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead and ask.
Oh, sorry. What? I'm supposed to ask you questions?
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead and probe me.
I'm not sure what you want me to ask.
Okay, so do you want to ask me who I value? Let's just say I'm a Chinese person for the sake of the argument, and I just think all things held constant, if you're a Chinese person, you have more value than non-Chinese.
Okay. And then, do you value non-Chinese people?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I value non-Chinese people.
Okay. Why?
Oh, I think I value things like levels of consciousness. I value their experience. Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. So, all things held constant, I'm going to value my race above every other. So, if there was one Chinese person versus another person that's almost exactly identical, but they're white, I'm going to save the Chinese person every time.
Okay. But
Okay, you don't have a problem with that?
I don't really have a problem with that. I mean, so long as you would save that person if it wasn't the fact that you would, you're forced into this consequentialist scenario.
No,
I
yeah,
don't care. I don't care if somebody has that level of inclusive bias that doesn't exclude other people. Like
Okay.
if you're hiring people and they are literally identical other than the race, and you choose, whatever in group you want, whether it's like male or your race or what, I don't care. But if it was the case that one of them was actually a better worker, then that person should be chosen.
Yeah. So for me, the way I'd perceive that is if everything is held constant, if you choose someone of your same race over somebody of a different race, I would absolutely say that sounds racist. And same goes for sex. If you choose somebody who is as capable as another person, but you choose them because they're of the same sex as you or of a sex preference,
Sure.
then that's absolutely sexist. Yeah,
It is a level of, I agree, it's a level of bias, but I don't mind that so long as it's the absolute last level of choosing for you.
Okay, yeah, then that's
what matters is their ability to do the job. If that comes first, then fine, whatever.
okay. Yeah, so because for me, and the way that I've seen with the way workplaces set up their regulations, if that's the case, then if that it just sounds like your position's actually racist.
Not really, because the only other way that
That's
people ever prove that there's a racist bias is if they show up with more qualifications than someone and then they get chosen over because that other person is of another race. That's what we find unjust, right? Like I should be treated based on my ability.
No. If two people are of exact same thing, but the other one gets chosen because of a race, then that is, yeah, literally racist.
What would you want them to do? Roll a dice?
Yeah, flip a coin, roll a dice.
But it doesn't matter which one they pick, really.
No, it does, because that just means that the person of a less, I guess you could say, desirable race is now at a disadvantage.
Desirable. He just has a plus bonus to whatever.
Yeah,
what if a white person has a plus bonus to black people? Is that fine?
No, I don't think that's fine either.
Right, well, I mean, it doesn't matter to me as long as it's, everything else comes first.
Okay, so yeah, that's fine. But you understand that if, say, you went into a job and somebody else got the job who was just as qualified as you, just because they happen to be of a specific race, you wouldn't find that racist.
It wouldn't bother me because I'm not any better than that person.
But they're being chosen over you because of their race.
Sure, whatever. Like if I really wanted the job, I should be a better employee.
If they wanted the job, they should have been a better employee. They just got the job because they're a race.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It's 50-50 either way. It's not like I'm more deserving. It's not like I deserve that job.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm okay with that. For me, that comes across, completely racist. So yeah, that's fine.
Right. If you think that's what racism, I think race is exclusion, not inclusion.
No problem. All right, that's fine, man. All right, I think that's about it. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you feel like you want something there.
I think if you roll that out, have you talked to any sort of employers or any? Have you talked to anybody that's ever been in a hiring position?
Yeah.
Okay. Run that through with them and see how they think about that and how that would play out.
I mean, most people aren't racist. They don't really pick that way.
No. But I want you to ask them that. Run that specific question by them and just say, all things considered equal, you have two employees and one of them gets chosen because of their race. What would you call that?
I would call it racism. It is racism.
Well, and that's it then. Yeah, that's essentially what race. That's the argument that I'm making. Is it's an unjustified decision based on a shell, which is their shell specifically right now is their race.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm not disagreeing. Like I would have a problem with racism myself because I don't view it in that sort of way. But I do feel it. I agree that I do have that sort of species view.
Yeah, but at the moment you're also allowing for the sort of racism thing to come in as well.
It's just like I think there are other metrics that are more, and that's what I think is most important.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but that's what I'm talking about. In terms of everything's equal, you find it acceptable if somebody got chosen based on their race and not as just a bonus.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as bothered by that.
Yeah, I'd be bothered by that, and I think the average person would be bothered by that. But yeah, that's fine.
The average person would be bothered by that, but because you would have to literally make sure these people are identical, and that just never happened. That's what the problem with racism is that people aren't identical to each other.
Yeah, look, that's fine. All right, yeah, I'm satisfied with that. Is there anything else you want to discuss?
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah, there's something else, but I can't remember off the top of my head, so that's fine. I'm happy to end it here.
All right. Thanks for having me on, and you for coming by the server.
No
Anybody
problem.
else wants to check it out, the links will be down below when I upload this YouTube video.
All right. Thanks. See you guys.
Bye-bye.